Hello, I got another bike going on the block. I often say that I'm not really into BMW motorcycles, but I got 3 of them here right now. This is a fine example of a later model Airhead. It's a 1983 R65 LS. My dad took me to the BMW rallies in the early 80s, and I remember really liking this one as a kid. Its lines are the work of a man called Hans Muth. Hans styled all of BMW's motorcycles in the 70s, including the R100 RS, which to my knowledge is the first motorcycle ever tested in a wind tunnel. Here's me chucking a beer behind my dad on his RS, probably circa 83. Hans also styled the iconic R90S. This hideous burnt orange color is considered by aficionados to be very desirable. If you can find one for sale, a prime example might fetch 20 grand. By 1980, Hans was going through a phase where he was drawing pointy motorcycles. At almost the exact same time that he penned the LS, he designed the Suzuki Katana 1100, which is quite a striking bike if you ask me. But then as a design exercise, Hans built this, based on an MV Agusta 750. I find this very peculiar, as though he's perseverating. He keeps putting these triangle things on the front of motorcycles, which is madness. But the LS. This one has 4,800 miles. I'm not exactly sure of its provenance, but I became acquainted with it in 2016. It's all original except for the side covers. As designed by Hans, the side covers were satin black, but it was pretty common for people to repaint them, and I think some dealers did this too. The color is not a perfect match, but you have to look for it. I went through this bike a couple years ago, and it didn't need much. It got fluids and filters and new tires. These are Michelin Road Classics. Tire selection is very limited for these old 18-inch wheels, but I put like 80 miles on this set since new. I had to service the steering head because the ancient grease in the roller bearings got all crunchy, but they cleaned up like new. All the other bearings appear to be good. The bike is really in great condition for its age, but it's not a show bike. I think what happened here was some dude bought this bike new and put 4,500 miles on it, and then left it sitting in the garage for 35 years. I think the previous owner bought it from the original owner and just replaced a few hoses and flipped it. I replaced some other stuff too, mostly carb related. Carbs of course got rebuilt, with new float valves and diaphragms and needles and jets and such. I jetted down for about 6,000 or 8,000 foot elevation like you would ride in Colorado. I actually replaced some stuff that didn't need it. But with 2 carburetors, if I replace something on one side, I like to do the other as well. And parts for these are cheap. Speaking of which, parts availability is excellent for old BMWs. I get most everything from Euro Moto Electrics out of Denver. I have no affiliation with them. They're just a good shop, and they have lots of cheap parts. I didn't touch the forks. I don't like to open up forks if the seals are good, and I was being lazy. If I were to keep it, I would probably change out the springs and use a heavier weight oil, but a buyer may have other preferences. I'm happy to do the work if I'm getting paid. BMWs of a certain era had keys with a hinge in them for some reason. Sometimes it's hard to know why Germans do the things they do. Here's a cold start. Ambient is about 70 degrees. I think I have this jetted a little lean, which would be better for riding in the high country. Here it wants half choke. I'll play around with it some, maybe go up on the idle jets. But an old carbureted bike often takes some coaxing. You do gotta remember to turn the fuel valve on. But once it's going, it runs quite nicely. It's got good compression, and I adjusted the valves very slightly. By this time, BMW was putting electronic ignition on their bikes, which is nice, because I hate points. With a little bit of heat, you can turn off the choke pretty quick. I was playing around with the carbs here, and the idle speed is set pretty low. Old BMWs are like tractors. They're very simple. There's this incredibly crude but effective way of syncing the carbs involving just using a random piece of metal. An old Airhead in tune should easily idle under 500 RPM. There's these old BMW guys who have competitions to see who can make their motor run the slowest. Incidentally, the charge light on these bikes is always on at idle. This is normal. This bike has myriad small cosmetic flaws, and a few larger ones. Somehow it got a big gouge on the fairing, which was inexpertly repaired. If you're not looking at it, you might miss it, but it's kinda ugly. There's also another scrape on this black part, and one on the right valve cover, which is kinda par for the course with a BMW Boxer. If you're wondering how this bike rides, I'll remind you it's a 42-year-old carbureted 2-valve pushrod 650. It doesn't have a whole lot of oomph. It also features twin rear shocks and a cradle frame and kinda spindly forks, so there's noticeable flex to the chassis. It's actually kinda sporty compared to many bikes of the era, but that's not saying a whole lot. It just won't do what a modern bike will do. With any motorcycle, you gotta calibrate your riding to the capabilities of the machine, and old bikes require perhaps a little more attention. You can certainly do some touring on it. It's got that famed BMW durability, but you gotta be something of an ascetic. It has no amenities, and you won't be going anywhere very fast either. On the other hand, you'll be doing it with some style. And that, after all, is the most important thing. Anyway, there you have it. A lovely classic bike. I hope you buy it. I'm trying to fund a lot of other projects,